protection law that is in Sri Lanka. So joining me also today for this discussion is Milani Salpiti Korala, attorney at law and founder of the Child Protection Force. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
We wound up things last time with a very important topic, whether the victim can be brought into court, and is he or she being taken in to the box to give evidence, and you were coming up with an explanation. So let's start off from that point.
Yes, so yes, victims do, children do come into court. Ideally also there is a law saying that you can request the court, under the discretion of the court, to ask everyone else except for the parties to leave, but you have to make that request. And in this particular case, the boy who is 16 now, he had to sit in court, and the defense counsel asked, so this is a case of grave sexual abuse against him, and he was burnt also when he was small. So the defense counsel asked him, I don't blame the defense counsel because that's his job. He asked the boy, do you know why, or do you think you know why this guy, you know, the perpetrator, did this to you? And the boy kept quiet, he didn't answer. So he came back to my office and he said, Miss, if I knew why, I would be the Buddha now. So this is how emotionally it affects children. And he keeps saying, Miss, you promised me that these cases will be over and I can get on with my life. I promise you that I will start studying when the cases are over. So this is a promise I can't make to him because it's way beyond my control.
And also, like say, for example, now, for example, since these cases get dragged on, as you mentioned in our previous episode, what happens if the statement of the child differs after a few years?
So this is when the case gets difficult, because it is the defense lawyer's job to defend his client, and it is the job of the state lawyer to prove that there has been a crime against a state. So it becomes a very difficult situation when the child's statement differs, which is why video evidence recording is extremely important.
Yeah, because obviously if the child was about 5 or 6 at that time, maybe he wouldn't have been able to express the same way that he would do in 13 when he was 13 or 14.
Exactly.
So I think video evidence would be the way out of to solve this.
Yes, and continued support systems for the child to say that you'll be safe, you're insured, because we also have a lot of threats coming towards the victim, and children are scared, they won't talk.
Is there any victim protection that law also that applies?
There is a victim protection law in Sri Lanka that was established recently in 2015. I have worked with the authority as well, and they've been doing excellent work, but not recently. I haven't worked with them recently, but yes, there is a department, but again I personally think it's not resourced enough.
Before going into another topic, I would like sexual harassment or sexual abuse or sex trafficking is also very common in Sri Lanka.
Yes, I think it was great news few weeks or few months ago, and I also believe that a lot of people have forgotten about it now. But yes, sex trafficking is rampant, but I personally also feel that it's also swept under the carpet a lot.
So is it the same law that if it comes under the child protection law, is it the same way that it will be treated like any other case, especially sex trafficking?
Absolutely. It's a major crime, and also the National Child Protection Authority has an overall mandate for the protection of all children in Sri Lanka. So it is also the duty of the authority to act.
Apart from the child protection law, is there any other law also that would apply for sex trafficking apart from it?
So it would be the penal laws, the criminal laws, the Children and Young Persons Ordinance, victim protection, victim and witness protection laws, and of course the penal laws, yes.
Another thing I would like to ask you, Milani, is that we talked about children being abused by obviously adult people, like say beyond the age of 20, 21, various. But what happens if a child is being abused by a child?
So it would be a crime still. So the age of criminal responsibility in Sri Lanka, whether it's abusing another child or any other crime, so we say theft or murder or whatever, the age of criminal liability is 12. So anyone who does a crime who is below the age of 12 is not a crime, because they are below that age. If it is 12 to 14, also this law was changed recently. If it is 12 to 14, the court will take into consideration the mental stability and the development ability of the child before the court makes an order. And yes, so the age of criminal responsibility is 12 and then 12 to 14 depending on their mental stability and capabilities. So yes, anyone between 14 to 18 who is still under the child category, if they commit a crime, it would be treated as a usual criminal case, but the punishment will, so it's a normal criminal process, but there will be a multidisciplinary team who are consisting of psychologists, psychiatrists and various other probation officers and so on, who will decide on the mental stability of the child. And also when it's punishment, they won't be put into Magazine and Bogambara adult prisons, but they will be placed in remand homes, which is not the ideal situation in a lot of other countries for juveniles. So for young people who commit crime, there is a process called the restorative justice process, where these young people are given a chance to also clean themselves, okay, because it might have been a psychological issue, it might have been a pressure from home, maybe they were hungry, that's why they stole the food from the shop or something. So they are also taken through a whole rehabilitative process and through the restorative justice system where they say sorry. So the actual victim is also there, the state actors are there, they sit on one table and the perpetrator says sorry to the victim, to society, and thereafter is in a mental state to take on responsibility for his actions. And this is an amazing system which has been very successful in a lot of other countries. But I think we also might progress to that hopefully, and by all means I don't mean this for adult perpetrators. I mean this for child perpetrators or children who have been accused of offence who might need another chance at life. You never know.
Given a second chance.
Second chance, absolutely.
What happens if, for example, a child below 12 years, you said it doesn't come under a crime if a child below 12 years, is being forced or being encouraged by an adult person to create a crime, and it's been created into the extent of even murder, then how does it all look like?
So again, below 12 means not a crime, the child will not, but if the child, when he is giving a statement to the police or to the NCP or whatever, says that this person made me do it, then they have a duty to, the law enforcement has a duty to bring in that person. And obviously, when they question and investigate, they should be able to find out.
Yeah, because I think about many years ago, there was an incident where even the parents were killed by around 15 to 16 years, and then after listening to various musics and being, and so when it comes to that, if he's in the age of 16 and creates a crime such as a murder, is he being given the same sentence that a senior citizen would be given?
A child would not be given the death sentence. It would also always be the, if at all, if it's that extreme, life imprisonment, depending on what the court will order. And thereafter, in the laws with regard to youth justice, the minister or the president can also make a call when it is a child. So it depends on the case and the facts and what the court orders as well.
I think we've talked about various crimes that come in and what are the laws come in. What are the solutions that come in to this? Apart from looking at in a perspective of law, is there any other common solutions that be given to the general public?
Absolutely. I mean, something that I always keep saying is the actors within this child protection system. So this would include the police, women and children's officers, the probation officers. Within the provincial secretariat, there are a lot of officers. There is a child rights protection officer, there is an early childhood development officer, there are counselors, there are women's youth officers. So there is a big team. And like I also said, our laws are in place, except for few things that we need to reform. And these officers are, I believe, in everything areas that I have worked with, are the most under-resourced officers that I have seen. Small example, in a police station that I went to, so they receive about 60 cases of domestic violence, children's matters per day. Two officers. So the OIC lady and her junior who has to take down all the complaints. And when I went, I was talking to her and all that, and she said, I have a child who is 8 years old who stays with my parents till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. They have to manage her online classes and they don't know. It's impossible. I am bringing this small phone to work because I have to give my smartphone to my child. This is a OIC of a police station. And I saw the tears in her eyes when she was talking about her child. I have the same feeling. I'm a mother of two. So do you understand when I say under-resourced? If she had 4 or 5 officers in her station, which is a big station, she has enough room, she will be empowered enough to get the job done fast and go home at 6 o'clock at least to see her child. So this is just one officer, but every officer that I talk to doesn't only have to be police, but law enforcement and all that. So, you know, there is no point blaming. There is no point blaming the government. There is no point blaming police officers or probation officers or so on. If they are properly resourced, one thing is materialistic resource and also self-empowerment for them. Workshops of, say, meditation, self-empowerment, life coaching, basically for them, they hear extremely traumatic cases like we do every day. Things of how to fill your cup before you help other people. So this is something that I'm harping about right now because these officers need a lot of resources, also by way of vehicles. I mean, I saw a lot of blue color 3-wheelers being given to the police, but I haven't seen these blue color 3-wheelers with the women and children's desk. They need to, because they need to take the child to the JMO, to the hospital. You can't use a bus to take a child who is a victim of rape. You have to take a vehicle. So these officers have used their personal money to take them in 3-wheelers, and I know it because I say this with a great responsibility. So I mean, I think we need to go bottoms up when allocating resources to things like this. You know, get the resources, the larger percentage of the resources to the grassroots level actors, state actors, and go bottoms up from there.
So apart from that, getting it from the bottom line, how does it how do you want to suggest to take it after that level to even increase the, especially if you can reduce the duration of these cases being heard, anything that
so by allocating resources, and I'm also talking about simple things like A4 sheets, when they have to write in lots of books before they get a A4 sheet for a report. Okay, computers, at least a motorbike for them to visit the children's houses. This is the delay. This is the cause of the main delay. Probation report takes 6-7 months to get into court. Judicial medical officer's report takes such a long time to get into court. Police investigation doesn't finish also. If you empower them enough, okay, not only with materialistic resources but also mentally, let them have access to psychologists because they hear trauma. They are thinking about their children also, and their children are unsafe. Let them have that empowerment, except for being the woman in the police station who has to do all the dirty work and carry all the IB books and make the tea and clean the station and all that as well. You know, to have that source of empowerment for them, and this needs to come from the senior officers itself, and to have that respect for the work that these officers are doing. I mean, just like in any organization where think about their employees, where it is important also to think about them. I have had a child rights protection officer who called, so their duty is to make sure that the rights of the child is protected, obviously. And they have to visit houses where they think that children are endangered. So she calls me and says, "Ane miss, mama me phone ekata mage sali dagatte. can you call me back? So, I call her back and she is like, I am scared to go to this particular area. It's a complete drug area. The young children, age 12, 13, when they know we are coming, they hit us with rocks. They are hiding and they are hitting us. We don't have state protection. Simply, we don't even have a vehicle to hide in. We have to walk and go there. So, I am scared, miss, but I know there is a lot of crime happening in that area against children. What can we do? So, I mean, these are grassroots level state actors. If it was a civil society organization, I mean, we can forget about it. But if it's a state actor who is talking about this is when we need to act, right? And also answering your question on how we can minimize all this is to educate the child, educate the communities. There are a lot of people who don't know what child protection is. And I always keep saying an empowered child is a safe child. If the child knows this is harmful towards me, then the child will safeguard himself. So, education.
Can this be implemented in the education system?
100% yes, and especially with things like Think Equal that came, teaching children how to identify their emotions. This was the early childhood program. This was, I don't know what happened to it. So, children identify their emotions. They know when they're scared. They know when somebody is coming with bad intentions, right? So, the child is empowered. You don't need all these systems to take care of the child. You have a child who is empowered enough to stop it, run and go and tell an adult. So, I think, I mean, it's very, it's not rocket science. Simply, it's very simple solutions that can be done.
And another thing, obviously the children in Sri Lanka and maybe around the world have been especially stagnated in their houses for the past 1.5 years due to the ongoing pandemic. Has the cases of child abuse or whatever thing increased during this period, or has it decreased during this time?
I can't speak on behalf of government statistics because I don't have any. I can speak on behalf of my office statistics. We are receiving an overwhelming amount of cases starting from the 17th of March 2020. I think my teammates have hardly had any holidays, but otherwise it has increased massively within our office, and mostly I can say that the higher percentage is domestic violence followed by child abuse, child sexual abuse.
In the homes itself, is it? So
yes.
Obviously for that it might be that the perpetrator might be a relative, maybe even the parents.
Yes, so most of the time it's a biological father or the mother's second husband. In Sinhalese they call him Bapa, but it's not the real Bapa is a mother's second husband. Grandparents, and in I think one case it was a neighbor. But it's all people who are very closely attached to that family unit, yes.
So, how is the how does it all happen now with the ongoing pandemic? What is the advice that you could give children to try and get empowered, and especially
advice to parents would be to please watch over them, don't leave them at home alone, or don't leave them anywhere alone for that matter. Try to find a mechanism or that create that support system where if you have to work, where you know somebody who can trust is with your child. Please look at what your children are watching on the internet, because there's a lot of cyber harassment, cyber sexual violence that is happening right now, starting from children who are 8 to 10 years old, because they are way more advanced in technology than we are. And for children is to listen to your body. You know when your body is not safe. If somebody is approaching you in an unsafe manner, you know it. So, I always tell the younger children to have appoint 5 people to the 5 fingers, mother, father, auntie, teacher, whatever, and go and tell them about what has happened to you.
Obviously with the fast moving world and technology, and a lot of children involved more in internet and various social media platforms, these video games and various games that the children play now mostly and see, has that also increased the violence level in children?
I think so, yes. Also more than violence, it has created a lot of anxious children. and I was on a webinar with a psychologist who said that the anxiety levels shown are very different to what they have seen previously. So now it's different things like overeating, oversleeping, or just sitting in uncomfortable positions, angry with the parents. So a lot of, yesterday I got a message from one of my clients saying, now my son is extremely aggressive because he wants an iPhone. So these are things, and I don't know whether Sri Lanka is ready to handle the post-COVID anxiety that is going to come from children. And I think that schools and teachers need to be trained specifically for that, to handle that post-COVID anxiety.
Yeah, because it's not going to be an easy task, because children are stagnated, they're not gone out, they're not seeing the outside world, they might not know what's really happening, especially younger children from ages to 5 to 10 who have not really been able to associate with society, Milani, would be finding it very difficult.
Absolutely, and one thing that we always say is, even if you live in an apartment, at least bring a pot with some soil and tell the child to take care of a plant. I am fortunate enough for my children to have a garden. And if you have that garden, just put them out. Let them play in the sand, let them play in the mud, let them climb the trees, it's okay. Just put them out, let them get used to that nature and how it can kind of give you a sense of calm.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's very hard to find these days a child who could climb a tree, climb a wall, because of the exposure that they. I think, Milani, we had a very lengthy and a very important topic being discussed today as well, about the child protection law and how what are the solutions that can come in, how you can protect your child. Anything finally that you would want to give a word out to our public?
I think it's what I said, just create that safety network. And even for your children, if you have to work all the time, if you have to work, then even when you come home, if you have 10 minutes, create that safety space for your child, so the child is able to tell you anything at all. That is very important.
All right, thank you very much, Milani, once again for joining us on this program and giving such an insight. I think it's very valuable, because children are definitely the future of tomorrow, and we definitely need to protect them. So if your parents watching it, please take advice from this and please act accordingly. That's the message that we can give you. And once again, thank you very much for giving all that. Well, with that, we come to the conclusion of today's episode of Law and Order. A very big thank you to Milani Salpita Korala for joining us, on this episode of Law and Order. So till we meet again with our next episode of Law and Order.